In my first video, I discussed what non-obvious cards I think should be banned for the sake of improving the health of the game. In this video, what 4 cards should be released from the ban list and moved to the limited list based on the current environment. The first card I think is somewhat obvious, and a lot of people are actually wondering why it's still banned. It's Trap Dust Shoot. It makes little sense to keep this card banned when Mind Crush is running around free at 3. While a number of individuals predict that Mind Crush will be limited in some way, one of the best balancing solutions to address the loss of some number of Mind Crush targets would be to return Trap Dust Shoot to the world of play. For example, 1 available copy of Dust Shoot and 1 available copy of Mind Crush should be sufficient to act as effective counters to widespread searching, while not being so overly annoying that it just frustrates people. Some would argue that Dust Shoot is more powerful than Mind Crush, hence why it's banned, because the card is returned to the deck rather than sent to the graveyard. But with the target only being limited to monster cards, and your opponent has to have at least 4 cards before you activate it, this loss of versatility leads to the idea that Mind Crush probably is better. So why not limit Mind Crush and bring back Dust Shoot? The second card I think that should be removed from the ban list is Gateway of the Six. The banning of this card was a classic case of overreaction. Yes, Gateway should not be at 3, but banning it is significant overkill. One of the purposes of the ban list is to control cards that negatively influence the game. However, it is difficult to negatively influence the game when a card is so archetype specific that it cannot be splashed into any other deck besides the deck that is immediately intended for. Look at the current ban list. There are only a small handful of other cards, Substitoad, Mindmaster, Stratos, and Wind-Up Carrier, that are archetype specific, and a number of people would argue that of those 4, at least half of those cards shouldn't be banned. Multiple copies of Gateway of the Six can be overpowered due to its combination potential based on the natural searching ability and special summoning ability of Six Samurai. But with only 1 copy available, Gateway loses its ban-worthy potential, and is simply a very nice support card for a single archetype that's not really doing anything in the current meta. Logically, moving Gateway from the ban list to the limited list makes the most sense. The third card on this list is Metamorphosis. Metamorphosis is a bridge card, which involves a form of non-archetype searching. Bridge cards can be tricky to manage because sometimes they're the problem due to their versatility, and other times they're simply the scapegoat for the problem caused by a card that they search for or summon. One example of a bridge card being a scapegoat is the idea of limiting or banning Manju of 10,000 Hands to rein in Necroz. Banning 10,000 Hands does very little to control Necroz, but it hurts other ritual decks a lot more. However, an example of a bridge card being a valid ban would be banning Cyber Dragon Nova. While Cyber Dragon Infinity is an extremely powerful card, it really is not the problem, for when is Infinity summoned through its actual natural summoning mechanism? Never. Everyone simply levels up from Nova to Infinity. A generic 3 monster required level 4 or a 2 light machine level 5 summons is so ridiculously easier than having 3 light machine level 6 summons. Seriously, go look at the number of light level 6 machine monsters that are available and ask yourself, are we really going to get Infinity out on the board with any level of consistency with these options? If you ban Nova, Infinity's play will drop like a stone from the top of the Tower of Pisa. But Infinity still will be present for players to actually attempt to try to build the deck around Infinity. With respects to Metamorphosis, it is akin to Manju of 10,000 Hands. Overall, there were 2 major problem cards. The first is currently banned in Thousand Eyes Restrict, and that card should never be removed from the ban list, so it's not an issue anymore. The second is Cyber Twin Dragon. The problem with Cyber Twin Dragon is its combination with Demise, the King of Armageddon, to produce an OTK. The deck basically involved summoning Demise, nuking the field, then using Metamorphosis to summon Cyber Twin Dragon, then, even if it were necessary, depending on the life points at the time, using either Megamorph or Limiter removal to attack for game. Overall, the Demise OTK never really defined any meta, So, as a general threat, it's kind of muted. However, if it would make everyone comfortable, I would certainly be in favor of a ban. Exchange in the context of we bring Metamorphosis back to 1 and we ban Cyber Twin Dragon. Nobody really runs Cyber Twin Dragon, and the reintroduction of Metamorphosis would give an interesting strategic mindset to deck building. Well, I got this one card that's extremely versatile, but it's not searchable, so how much of my extra deck am I going to devote to taking advantage of Metamorphosis? Some might argue that Cyber End Dragon's also a big threat, because you can bring it out with something like Metal Reflect Slime or even now Cyber Ethian. I think Cyber Ethian's a much more credible threat than Metal Reflect Slime personally, but overall the Cyber End Dragon OTK is still too inconsistent to be relevant for me. Some could argue with Earth and Spider statue, the Cyber Blader lock could become a bigger problem with Metamorphosis, and that there's some truth to that statement, but the Cyber Blader lock still requires at least 4 cards to pull off successfully, and it's hugely inconsistent and luck-based. I don't see that as being a big problem. Realistically, in my opinion, OTK or lock decks that are built around a single, unsearchable, outside of the most generic or convoluted method spell card will never be consistent enough to be anything but a small annoyance. Thus, I think it's worth trying to bring back Metamorphosis for its versatility and the creative aspect of it. Well, 3 cards down, and there's only 1 card to go. So far, none of the above choices are significantly controversial. Some may disagree with Metamorphosis, but no one should be really up in arms about it coming back off the ban list and returning to 1. Society tells me that sex and controversy sells, so I guess there needs to be some controversy on this list. Fortunately, there is a card on the ban list that fits the potentially controversial label, but is not controversial for the sake of just being controversial. It genuinely could be moved from the ban list to the limited list based on the current environment. Alright, so what's this mystery card? Come on out, Yatagarasu. Okay. Before a number of viewers launch into a flurry of not-so-nice language at the screen or burst into a fit of laughter about my apparent stupidity, let's actually go over the pros and cons of returning Yata to the land of the living, so to speak. The first pro for bringing back Yata is the first sentence. The fact that this card cannot be special summoned, period, limits its utility, especially in the modern meta where 90+% of monsters are special summoned. You have to get the card into your hand and normal summon it. Currently, off the top of my head, I can only think of 2 searchers that can grab Yata. Tourbus of the Forbidden Realms and Ku. Both are on the slower side, the first being a flip effect monster, and the second requiring its tribute. The second pro is that with only 200 attack points, but requiring the infliction of battle damage for its effect versus something as simple as a summons, Yata needs help to produce its effect. Because it requires this help by itself, Yata has a decent potential to be a dead draw, especially when top decking. Yata is a card that cannot really trigger a comeback. Instead, you already have to be winning or generally even with your opponent to make use of it. The third general pro is that unlike when Yata first emerged onto the scene and kicked everyone's butt, there are a number of counter cards that now exist. For example, negating monster effects in Yata's heyday was almost impossible, especially during the opponent's turn. Now there are cards that negate effect and destroy effects when activated, like Valor, Usagi, Divine Wrath, Fiendish Chain, Breakthrough Skill, etc. Again, returning to the point that battle damage must be inflicted, any card that negates attacks can stop it. Finally, even if the battle damage is recorded, a card like Pero can destroy Yata, only resulting in a single draw phase lost. However, with that said, the first general con and the biggest red flag for removing Yata from the ban list is simply reading the effect after the first sentence. While some cards do produce head scratching when they're banned, no one scratched his or her head when Yata was banned. Having to flat out skip the draw phase with no associated benefit is one of the most devastating effects in the game, where only a single occurrence, despite a Pero, can change the momentum to the point where you lose the game. There's a reason why Time Seal is still banned over a card like Drop Off. With the power of such an effect, some would think, who cares that the modern meta now has these variety of answers? Just getting hit once is enough to ruin my game and cost me the entire match. Because I'm not going to have an answer ready at all times. The second general con is its inherent spirit effect, is an actual benefit, rather than the initial hindrance I think that the card creators thought when they first conceived of Yada. Basically, because it returns to the hand, we all know that Yada escapes anything that's not spell speed 2, and it also evades any type of means to destroy it by battle. So, even with Regeki and Dark Hole being back in larger circulation, that does nothing to deal with Yada. You could argue Mind Crush and if Trap Dust Shoot comes back, those are ways of dealing with Yada, but again it harkens back to the first con. You're not always going to have that answer at the time you need it. Overall, while there are still more options now to deal with Yada, whether or not there are enough options to effectively neutralize its power, that's still debatable. Debatable. As they say, there's the rub. We don't know whether or not Yada is ban-worthy at this point in time. Realistically, I could see unbanning Yada going one of two ways. First, it could be akin to unbanning Snatch Steal, where after 2 weeks, basically the entire community is calling for its head, citing that unbanning Yada was one of the worst decisions ever, ban that, never unban it again, it's horrible. Or it could go the way of the unbanning of Regeki, where, yeah, it's annoying, it costs you a game here and there, but you can handle it. It's not this widespread plague upon the game. However, it should be noted that if Yada is unbanned, you can't unban Harpy's Feather Duster, Heavy Storm, or Giant Trunade. Otherwise, that would make Yada locks a lot more probable. Incidentally, I don't think you should unban Harpy's Feather Duster, Heavy Storm, or Giant Trunade anyways, because the environment's already too OTK heavy that having a card that eliminates all back row is just going to facilitate that OTK and make the game less strategic and less fun. Well, that's it. Those are the 4 cards that are currently banned that I think that could be brought back to 1 if the powers that be wanted to either shake the game up a bit or restore some levels of fairness to the ban list. Thank you for your attention and your time. I'm out.